Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting of the Public Accounts Committee to order. I note that we are quorate, so we can proceed to hold this hearing this morning. We are here this morning to examine a report issued by the Auditor General's Office that is entitled Financial Reporting of the Cayman Islands Government General Report on the results of the 2023 financial audits, 31st of December 2023, November 2024. As is our practice, we have a prayer at this time, and I would ask Ms. Heather Bodden if she would lead us in that prayer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. Let us pray. Our kind Heavenly Father, we pause, grateful hearts, and bow our heads in reverence to give you thanks for another beautiful day. Thank you for waking us up this morning. Lord, thank you for all your mercies. They never cease to amaze us every day. As we begin our day, we ask you to calm our minds and bring comfort to our hearts. We ask for your guidance, wisdom, and place in our hearts peace and understanding. Keep us all in your care. And for all this we ask in your great name's sake. Amen.
Thank you, Ms. Heather. We have not had apologies from other members who are not here this morning. I would like at this time to welcome the Auditor General, Mrs. Sue Winspear, and her team to the chamber. She's accompanied this morning by Mr. Winston Sobers, who is the Deputy Auditor General, as well as a number of other managers and senior project leaders in the Auditor General's office. So I say a very warm welcome to you all this morning. Glad to have you. We also want to recognize Mr. Kenneth Jefferson, who is a Financial Secretary and Chief Officer in the Ministry of Finance and Economic Development, and Mr. Matthew Tibbetts, the Accountant General. So welcome to you all, and let me say to everyone as well, Happy New Year to everyone. I hope that 2025 will be a very successful year for us all, and that we'll enjoy good health and prosperity. So, Auditor General, I'm going to invite you now at this time to introduce the report, after which we will begin questioning the witnesses that are appearing before us this morning. And so over to you, Auditor General.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Public Accounts Committee, officials from the Ministry of Finance, my colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, and also Happy New Year to everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to make some opening remarks. The report we are considering today is our general report based on the 2023 entity financial audits of government. We also touch upon the consolidated entire public sector account. The report gives all the results of the 2023 audits concluded by the 30th of September last year and draws out the significant audit matters. By that date, I am delighted to say that 39 out of 46 audits had been concluded, and more importantly, that all audits received a clean or unmodified, unqualified audit opinion. One more audit, Cayman Airways, was concluded after the 30th of September, which I also gave a clean audit opinion to. However, despite the clean audit opinions, which is great, the quality of the financial submissions to my office needs improvement. I'll now briefly highlight the main themes, the main areas of concern that were found through undertaking the 2023 entity audits. Firstly, I have concerns about the quality of some entities' financial reporting. For the 39 audits reported on, over 360 audit adjustments were made, and these adjustments were valued at $354 million. So you can see that there's a concern potential about decision-making and decision-making being affected by sort of poor information. There continues to be a reluctance to disclose in sufficient detail in the financial statements subsequent events and also commitments. And also there are often inadequate explanations given for budget variations which are required by auditing standards. And all of these things are things that the public are really interested in. There continues to be aspects of non-compliance with the Procurement Act, and of course it's concerning, but the procurement across the public service has improved, markedly in recent years, and we mustn't forget that. But of course, whenever we find areas of non-compliance, that does concern us. And we found examples of procurements over 250,000 that did not have the approval of the Public Procurement Committee, goods and services over 100,000 that were procured without any tendering. And this continues to raise concerns about value for money being received. 3 statutory authorities and government companies have yet to implement Section 47 of the Public Authorities Act, which for many years has been subject to implementation and has been problematic, but has been implemented in all of the others. And so that is about aligning the pay of the statutory authority or government company with that of the civil service. And one witness today I know will be asked about that. I also remain concerned that additional payroll costs associated with complying with that Public Authorities Act, particularly when it comes to the public authorities and statutory authorities having similar pension and healthcare provisions which aren't budgeted for, that is of concern. Finally, I wanted to talk about the financial performance of public bodies. Of the 18 core government audits completed, 11 ministries, portfolios and offices recorded a surplus, 6 broke even and 1 recorded a deficit. But then when you come to the 21 statutory authorities and government companies, which are expected to at least break even or make a profit, only 12 recorded surpluses, 2 broke even and 7 made deficits. Finally, I'd just like to say that I've issued to Parliament today an updated version of the report which makes changes to paragraph 57. It relates to the Cayman Islands National Attractions Authority and makes some changes to the wording there around our procurement concern. And it removes the second bullet point from that paragraph, which relates to the £9.5 million fit-out costs for the new premises in Cricket Square that SEMA have occupied. We have accepted that that was all part of the lease agreement for the new premises and therefore is exempt from tendering under the Procurement Act. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for introducing my team who are here to support. As this summarises our work for the whole year, it's something that every single member of our office gets involved with, and I'm grateful that you've allowed so many of my team members, Gabriel, Sasha, John and Ruel as well, to be here today with me. And we stand ready to support you through the hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Auditor General. Before we actually get in and bring our first witness in, I really listened intently to your introduction, and the points you elaborated on. We could just as well have been talking about 2022, yes. 2021 audits. The point I want to make is the points seem to be reoccurring every year. I just want to get your feel for maybe reasons why that is the case and why there doesn't appear to be much of an improvement, if you do have anything that you can offer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's an excellent question. I probably should have covered it a little more in my opening remarks. We've had the Deputy Governor and the Financial Secretary and other senior government officials along in past years to answer to these thematic things. And the Deputy Governor in particular has always said, well, you need to ask the entities, you need to ask the entities. So, as I'm sure you'll say in your introduction, this year we are asking a small number of entities about these things. We do have government minutes outstanding which make recommendations around these things, and I hope there will be improvement. Whilst the themes do endure and do continue, and I'm particularly concerned about the number of adjustments and the quality of financial submissions, because that's something that I don't think is getting that much better. I mean, there's a lot of really good submissions, but there's too many that aren't. But things like procurement, the Public Authorities Act, although there's still themes and there's still issues, the position has improved over time. We're in a position now where we only have three bodies that haven't complied with the Public Authorities Act. It might seem like that there's a lot of examples of non-compliance with the Procurement Act, but when you consider the magnitude and volume of magnitude by value and volume of procurements the public service does, it's actually a relatively small number. And since the Procurement Act has come in, this has improved procurement in the public service markedly. I hope that helps.
Certainly does. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to add, with your permission, just a few quick thoughts. The Auditor General, I had a very glancing discussion a while back particularly on the audit adjustments, and she's quite right. It is very concerning if you have audit adjustments being necessary after the submission of financial statements to our office for auditing that exceeds, $300+ million. That's extremely significant. I've also said to the Deputy Governor that that's not the way things should be, and if those adjustments had not been made, maybe we won't be talking about clean audit opinions at all. So he's aware of it, and I'm going to do my level best to, have it at a high-level discussion with chief officers as well. Thank you, sir.
And I thank you for that elucidation to Financial Secretary. Okay, we want to move on, and at this time I'd like to invite our first witness to enter the chamber, and he is Mr. Paul Hurlston, Port Director. Good morning, Mr. Hulston. I thank you for appearing before the committee this morning to answer some questions for us with regard to the Auditor General's report. When I ask you a question, sir, I'd be grateful if at the first question, if you would state your name and your position for the record so that it's recorded properly in the Hansards. But before I actually start to ask you any questions, I would like to just make a brief statement, an opening preamble to set the stage for the questioning and this morning. So the Auditor General's report summarizes the financial results and the audit opinions of public bodies for the year ended December 31st, 2023. The report also provides other information about the financial health of public bodies. And while all 2023 audits completed to date have received a clean or unqualified audit opinion, the Auditor General has raised thematic concerns in her report. These issues include poor quality financial submissions, the high number and value of audit adjustments, and non-compliance with various acts, including the Procurement Act, the Public Authorities Act, and Public Management and Finance Act. In past years, the PAC has invited the Deputy Governor, Financial Secretary, and other senior officials to discuss these thematic issues. However, this year, the PAC has decided to invite witnesses from several entities to discuss these matters. Those witnesses will be from the Ministry of Planning, Agriculture, Housing, Infrastructure, Transport and Development, the Cayman Islands Monetary Authority, and the Port Authority of the Cayman Islands. I welcome and thank you, Mr. Director, for being here today, and I will begin the line of questioning in regard to the evidence which you will give this morning before the committee. So the first area I wanted to explore with you, Mr. Rolston, is the financial performance of the Port Authority. And I have to go on record saying that we are pleased that the Port Authority got a clean audit opinion for 2023, and we do congratulate you on that. However, we note that the Port Authority had a number of internal control matters raised, and we would like to ask you about some of these here this morning. But before we do that, I would like to ask you about the Port Authority's financial performance. Exhibit 20 on page 38 shows that the Port Authority made losses in 3 of the past 5 years, including a loss of just over $3 million in 2023. Mr. Hulston, my first question to you is if you could give us some reasonings or explanations for the reported losses in 2023.
Good morning. My name is Paul Hulston. I am the Port Director. Mr. Chairman, the losses in 2023 were mainly because of a revaluation, and let me get that, of our defined benefits. So as you know, they have to be revalued every year, and unfortunately, in 2023, they went down. The second reason is that our costs went up post-COVID, and our revenues haven't been increased in terms of fees for about 16 years. So I should say now that we have had an increase in 2024, so that will affect going forward. So that's the main 2 reasons why we have a loss, a book loss, that is. We did make an operational surplus of about $1 million.
Thank you, sir, for that response. It just seems to me that looking back over the years, there is, quite significant fluctuations from year to year in terms of the financial results of the port. One year there is like in 2023, there's a loss. 2022, what I've seen is correct, there was a profit in 2022. And it seems, 1 year, things seem to move up and down quite significantly. To what do you attribute those variations to from year on year?
Mr. Chairman, it's mainly the defined benefits I made to understand that, as you will know, in 22 we made a profit of 16 million. In 21 it was 11 million. In 2020 it was almost a $12 million loss. These are the revaluations of our defined benefits.
Are there any other issues or items that are reflecting and impacting on that bottom line number?
Mr. Chairman, and also in 2023 we had a revaluation of our properties, which was mainly the Royal Watler, which is a commercial, and the value of that went down by some 3 million also. Sorry, 300,000, not 3 million. So there was a revaluation done of the property by the Lands and Survey, and it was valued less at that time.
For the benefit of the listening public and those who may look afterwards, what was the defined benefit, the amount that flowed through to the statement of results of operations, in other words, the income statement for 2023?
Mr. Chairman, sorry, it's $3.8 million.
Do you have the comparative, say, for like 2022 or 2021? I'm just trying to get a feel for just how big these numbers are year on year.
It was 15 million in 2022.
So, okay, go ahead, sir.
And in 2021, it was 750,000. So you do see there's a big fluctuation, yes.
Yeah, I think what I'm getting at and what the numbers you identified, in 2022, so it was like a $15 million hit.
Yeah.
But yet still you still manage to make a significant profit in 2022.
Yeah, it was a $16 million profit in 2022.
Well, I mean, I think being the accountant I'm struggling to understand that. To me, there has to be some other reasons why why these losses do appear from time to time, and why the fluctuations are so great. Because I think if you're ignoring that, the Port Authority would have had a $30 million surplus in 2022. And if you look at 2023, the effect of it would have been about a break-even position in terms of the adjustment to reflect the valuation of the liabilities.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, a correction there. In 2022, the gain, you said the hit, but the gain was $15 million from the defined benefits. That's why we had a profit.
Okay, so there was it wasn't a gain. It wasn't. I get you.
When
now.
you say it hit the sorry, sir.
Yeah.
when you say it hit the bottom line, it was actually 15 positive, not negative.
Thanks for the clarity.
Sorry about that.
Okay, I do appreciate that. Okay, I'm going to move on now, Mr. Pearlston, and talk about audit control points. And the first area I want to focus on are the staff acting arrangements. The report summarizes internal control deficiencies in Appendix C. And one of the internal control points raised by the audit relates to staff acting arrangements. We, that is the committee, understand that the Port Authority does not have a policy for acting arrangements. Can you tell us why the Port wouldn't have one as part of its operations manual?
Mr. Chairman, I would say that the amount of acting positions that the port experienced over the last 4 years was unprecedented. And the general policy, from what I understand, is 12 months. However, for whatever reasons, this seems to have been not dealt with in the time frame. I think it's a government policy in general. However, I can say now that the acting positions, except one junior position, have all been filled at this stage since I came back to the port. But it's something that we would have to look at and perhaps have a defined policy and implement that any future acting would be within a reasonable time frame and not extended over a long period of time.
Mr. Hurlson, do you know how many people are actually on acting arrangements at this time at the port?
There's just one, a junior staff that will be dealt with shortly.
And do you have any, I mean, can we get a commitment at least from you that you will take on this, the issue by developing an acting policy and actually document it as in part of your manuals?
I do undertake to do so, and not only to develop the policy, but also to make sure that it's followed. In the real world, there should be limited amount of acting. So it's very unfortunate that the port had to go through this for such a long time. But I will commit to do so. Thank you.
And I thank you for such a positive response to that, because I think it really does come down to just purely good governance. And we are keen to see that that all government entities, not just port, excel in terms of their acting and employing good governance practices. So I thank you for that, sir. I'm going to turn things over now to Ms. Barbara Connolly, who will continue with the questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, Mr. Hurlston, for appearing here today as one of our witnesses. We now move on to discussing the night shift workers who are paid at time and a half for hours worked, contrary to their employment contracts. We note that this is a complex and historic issue, but the situation needs to be regularized in some way so that staff are paid in accordance with their employment contracts. Can the witness provide this committee with the reasons or conditions that led to this historic situation?
Mr. Chairman, as you all may know, the night shift operations gone back 20 odd years. And when it was put in place back in those days, which I was a part of it. There was no rules or anything that we could look at to see how it could be done or should be done. So we had to come up with our own rules and regulations to do it. And one of the things was that the board approved at that time that if workers worked at night, they would be paid at a higher rate, which turned out to be a time and a half. That is what they approved. When we put the first shift system in place, we had people working both night and day, the same persons. So it was at that time difficult to adjust their contracts to any specific amount because they were working both night and day, and they were working irregular hours because we were just trying to get a system working as we were told to do. The chairman of the board, had tasked me with that position as board director. Anyway, over the years, we changed a system where we had people just working at night, and then so we knew what their salary would be, and then the day shift is a total different. So that went on for 12 years, I believe, and several years ago, it was changed back to the old system where people work both day and night. Contracts weren't changed. Then in 2022, it was again changed back to the old system where you have people who just work at night and people just work in the day. Again, unfortunately, the contracts were not updated. I will give you an undertaking that now that we're sort of settled down in terms of hopefully this particular shift system will stay in place for a longer period of time, we will go through each contract and update them. And I think we'll also probably take it to the board to have a policy or an agreement on the night pay rate, whatever that should be. If it's to continue, then we should have a clear vote on it, because I think years ago when we did it, it was not really clear, even though it was agreed to. The documentation for it was a bit lacking, to be honest. So I think that's the way forward. We will do it. We will straighten it up and have a board policy on it.
Thank you, Mr. Hurlston. So currently, do you have staff now that are working both day and night?
Yes and no. We have a set of staff that work exclusively at night, but if in the event that they're short staff, we do call in people. We have to call in some of the day shifts, for example, if we need forklift operators or whatever. So yeah, we do have a few people that work day and night, yes.
Thank you, sir. Many of you know that I believe in time frames, and I would like some undertaking from you that you will take a policy to your board in terms of regularizing the situation with regard to staff working in the night, in the day, and what sort of payment or salary they should be getting at that time. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, to you, I do take the undertaking, and I will get it done as soon as possible.
Okay, moving on. We would like to discuss the system used to record staff time for payment purposes for waged employees. The auditors have reported that the system lacks robust controls and that supervisors are allowed to adjust hours manually. This creates a risk of potential overstatement or manipulation of hours worked. Can the director advise us as to what plans you have to address the control risk in the system?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, through you, we have now employed to, and I think this is really goes to talking about the night operations again in terms of adjusting hours. There will always be adjusting of certain hours for whatever reasons. People forget to punch or whatever. It was done at the supervisor level. However, we have managers in place now and also a new deputy director of operations. So I do undertake that there will be more robust signing off on the changes for whatever adjustments have been made. But like I said, there will be adjustments made. That's just the nature of our job. But I agree that we need to be more thorough in the way we do it, and we will.
Thank you, Mr. Director. So currently, do you have like a punch-in system in terms of time for your staff in and out? And can you also give us some assurances that the systems are in place, or there will be systems in place to mitigate these control risk?
So Chairman, again through you. Yes, we have time clocks. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, sometimes people don't punch or forget to punch out, or so that is when the manual entry has to be made or is made, and it's done at the supervisor level. But what we'll do is to have the managers and then the deputy director of operations also be a part of it to as a second signature for the adjustments. It's mainly adding back hours. If someone forgot to punch, then the clock says he didn't work, but we know they worked, so the supervisor who's on duty, they're on duty, they're able to change it. But we will put a better system in place to enhance it.
Thank you for that explanation, but I think you have to have some sort of systems in place, because you're just taking people's word or the supervisor's word. I think there has to be some systems in place to be able to control your staff and the hours that they actually work. Thank you very much.
Mr. Hurlston, that concludes our examination of you as a witness here this morning. I want to thank you for your appearance, and thank you for the candid way that you have answered the questions. What I will say is that, you know, you've given us a number of commitments, and, you know, these are recorded for us as a committee. And one of the things that will happen in the future is that the Auditor General will look at some of these things and see if they actually have been accomplished and done. So I would hope with the commitments I've made that next year, whoever's in this chair and questioning you, that we can look back and say happily, yes, you did accomplish and implement the things, the commitments that you gave to this committee here today. So I thank you very much for your testimony.
So Chairman, I'd like to thank you all too. And like you said, I don't know if I'll be here either, so anyway, the commitments that I made, they will be carried out. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. I'd like to summon the next witness into the chamber. I'd like to call Mr. Klein Glidden, the chairman of the Port Authority. Good morning, Mr. Glidden. Welcome to this hearing of the Public Accounts Committee. Thank you for attending here as a witness in your capacity as Chairman of the Board of Directors of the Port Authority of the Cayman Islands. When I ask you your first question, sir, I'd appreciate if you state your name and the position so that we will have a record of it, proper record of it in the Hansard. Before I ask you, though, I'd just like to make a very short statement as well. As we said to the Port Authority just minutes ago, we are really pleased that the Port Authority got a clean or unaudited, unqualified audit opinion for 2023, and I congratulate you all on that. However, we note that the Port Authority had a number of audit matters raised, and we'd like to ask you about some of these today. The first area I wanted to examine with you is the Port Authority's financial performance. I welcome your thoughts this morning on their performance. Before we discuss a few audit findings, Exhibit 20 on page 38 shows that the Port made losses in 3 of the past 5 years, including a loss of just over $3 million in 2023. I'd like to hear your views on the reasons or explanations for the loss made in 2023, and if the board expected this.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. My name is Klein Glidden. I'm the chairman of the Port Authority, and I thank you for the opportunity to be able to appear as a witness today. In regards to the comments that were made while I was able to listen from outside, and I think that our director clarified the position from a loss and from a book loss, not being the accountant, but knowing that you are. I'm sure we're conscious of the difference. If we look at the evidence on page 39, we'll see a level of consistency in terms of revenue. And so I think that's a clearer representation of the consistency from a revenue standpoint. Assuming that we don't have any unplanned for expenditures, then we will see that there's been a stable increase, which would be reflective of population growth, imports continuing to increase. We'll see the slowdown during the COVID period, which would appear to correlate quite well with the revenue and expenses, and therefore the explanation that was provided in regards to the reason for the on-paper loss was some actuarial reviews, which we don't have any way of controlling. Good news is that the board gave a detailed report and proposal to the government to allow for some increases in 2024, which was approved after discussion with the public in regards to ensuring that there was no significant increases to the cost of living for the country. And with the government's approval of that, we're looking forward to increased financial performance of the Port Authority in this coming year.
Okay, I'm going to have to, this is my understanding as well. I wanted to just raise it with you as well. Port Authority made a loss of $3.13 million in 2023. I believe, if I've heard correctly, that included a increase in provisions for employee benefits of around $3 million. So in effect then it seems, give or take, that for the year that there was a break-even position if you ignore it. And it's not right to ignore it, but the point I wanted to make here is it seems it as well in 2022 with a profit of $16 million, that was made or recognized on the basis that there was like a $15 million decrease in the provision or the movement in the provision for the employee benefits I think I've got it right in terms of my description of the line item that it is affected. But I don't have the audited statements here in front of me.
Mr. Chairman, if I could help.
Yeah.
I think you're correct. I think we saw a 15 million movement from the 16 before, and basically the break-even position is around a profit of $1 million a year, right? So the 15 to 16 and the 3 to the 3.1, and then they made mention of another loss on an adjustment on a valuation of property in 2023 as well. So if we took those fluctuations from the contribution, it would be around $1 million per year in profit for the Port Authority.
Okay, it's been well over a dozen years now that I've been out of the accounting profession, but does the valuation of the profit of the fixed assets, does that actually flow straight through to the bottom line, or does it go to just straight to equity?
Mr. Chair, through you, Winston Sobers, Deputy Auditor General. Yes, the revaluation of the property. So they have investment property, which when it's revalued annually, it flows through the P&L and impacts the bottom line as well too.
Okay, thanks for the clarity. Let me move on now, Mr. Glidden, to audit matters. We noted that a non-executive director acted as board secretary at a board meeting in 2023, and this is contrary to Section 18(1) of the Public Authorities Act. I'm sure you appreciate the importance of board members not undertaking operational matters, but instead focusing on setting strategic direction and holding management accountable. Operational matters are the responsibility of the port director and his staff. So I'd like to ask you about the reasons or conditions that led to this situation back in 2023.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, as you mentioned, fully understand and accept, and that was an oversight on the part of the board. Myself as chairman of the board take full responsibility. As they would have found, we've ensured that those mistakes don't happen again. It was basically a staff member being on, not available at the time. And as we started the meeting, we didn't realize it. We continued on in error. And so fully accept responsibility and will ensure that it doesn't happen again.
So what you're saying is that the board couldn't find someone else to take up the role for the meeting?
Not on short notice.
Okay. Let me turn now to Ms. Barbara Connolly and ask her to continue the questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To our witness, Mr. Glidden, good morning.
Morning.
My question is on value for money of Christmas party. The Auditor General reported that nearly $46,000 was spent on the Christmas party, which she deemed excessive, and I think we can all agree here today that we all can concur with that. We understand the amount spent was lower than the $57,000 spent in 2022, and also the 2023 Christmas celebration was combined with an awards ceremony. However, it was significantly in excess of the guideline amount suggested by the Cayman Islands government. We know that the management indicated that this was approved by the board. And Mr. Chairman, you as the board chairman, can you advise this committee on how the board assessed that spending such a massive amount on a party provided value for money for this country?
Through you, Mr. Chair, thank the member for that question. The Port Authority and its Board of Directors takes very seriously its responsibility to always act in the best interests of the board. And so when the consideration came for a staff appreciation function and for a Christmas party, we sincerely gave consideration to the long, hard-working hours in dangerous conditions that the Port Authority staff participates and partakes in on an ongoing basis to ensure that some 97 to 98% of all goods that are imported to the island are done in a safe and reliable manner. That involves dangerous work. That also involves time spent away from family. I heard the questioning earlier about the shifts and people working through the night. And so when the board looked at the end of year, it decided that in light of the fact that the hardworking staff of the Port Authority, under the difficult conditions, had done such a good job that we felt that there should be some recognition given to them that was reflective of that hard work. And the fact that they were also away from their family for extended periods of time, we wanted to have a function that would allow the families to actually come. We think it's important to have a family-oriented work environment for the staff, and so this gave a chance for the staff members to bring their spouse or significant other and actually allow them to meet and understand the other members of staff that they get to spend a lot of time with. And so while the government, as a central government, takes a position and gives a recommendation, I guess the short of that is that that recommendation the board felt was not sufficient for us to be able to do what we felt was pragmatic and practical for the staff of the Port Authority. And so therefore we followed the regulatory requirements, the legal requirements, got the proposals and got it approved by the board. And again, we think that while it may seem excessive or while it was deemed excessive, as a Port Authority, we felt comfortable that we weren't breaking laws, and while it was a recommendation in this particular case, it wasn't a recommendation that we felt accepting would be in the best interest of the Port Authority of the Cayman Islands.
Thank you for that explanation, Mr. Chairman. So is it the practice then that every Christmas party you all spend this type of money as a result of a celebration, or is it just that particular year you went?
It will totally,
Mr.
Chairman, sorry. It will totally depend on, obviously, the board, the work that has been done, the challenges that have been met and overcome, the role that the Port Authority plays, and also the financial position of the Port Authority. So if the Port Authority is in a good financial position, we wanted to make sure that the staff who contributed to that position were shown appreciation. So obviously, if we were in a situation where we couldn't afford to do that, or if it was going to put the Port Authority in operational challenges, we would have to do something different. But if we're in a position where the Port Authority is able to meet its expenses and obligations due to the hard work of the staff, we wanted to make sure that they were shown a level of appreciation.
Thank you, sir. Well, could you advise us then what was spent on this last year's Christmas party, 2024?
I can't, because I don't have that information, but I'll give an undertaking to have the Port Authority submit that information to the Auditor General's office.
Thank you, sir. We will appreciate that. Moving on now to the night shift workers. We asked the Port Director about the situation whereby the night shift workers are paid time and a half for the hours they work, contrary to their employment contracts. The PSC appreciates that this is a historic issue, but it is important to regularize it so that people are paid in accordance with their contracts. Can you give your reasons or conditions that led to this historical situation as the chairman of the board?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think, I guess the uniqueness of my circumstance gives me some perspective as to this situation. It's been a ongoing, challenging situation through various administrations in regards to the split role of having port operations in the day and the night. Just like to say that it's been, like, as you mentioned, it's been going on for a long period of time. And there was a decision, I guess a policy decision made many, many years ago that has led to this situation where we have individuals getting paid different wages for, depending on the period of time they work. I've heard the questioning, the response that was given. Operations do fall under the port director, but I think he gave the undertaking, and I give the same one to say that there needs to be a clearer policy, and obviously the contracts should be reviewed to ensure that the contract is reflective of what is actually being paid.
Thank you, sir. I do agree that the port director has indicated that there would be an undertaking that the contracts would be regularized, and that the contracts, I guess, will be then go to the board for approval. So I thank you for that.
Mr. Glidden, that concludes our examination of you, sir, as a witness, as chairman of the board. I want to thank you for attending this morning and for candidly answering the questions that this committee has had to ask you. So thanks again for attending. You're excused from this hearing.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman.
I'd like to call our next witness into the chamber, Mr. Eric Bush, Chief Officer, Ministry of Planning, Agriculture, Housing, Infrastructure, Transport and Development. Thank you, sir. Mr. Bush, good morning. I welcome you to this committee and to the examination of this report issued by the Auditor General's Office on the results of their audits of the financial statements of government entities. May I ask, I think you know the drill. State your name and position once you are set to answer the very first question. Before I begin, sir, brief statement from me. That the Auditor General's report summarizes the financial results and audit opinions of public bodies for the year 2023. The report also provides other information about the financial health of public bodies. We recognize that the 2023 audit for your ministry is not yet complete, but we wanted to talk to you about progress to date on that and the audit matters that arose during the 2022 audit. I thank you this morning for giving up your time to attend the witness hearings this morning, as we appreciate how busy you must be. I think you got to have one of the largest ministries within the government. So I'm going to turn things over now to Ms. Heather Barton, who will begin the questioning. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Mr. Bush. In the 2023 General Report, as in past years, the Auditor General draws our attention to issues regarding the quality of financial statements and the volume and value of audit adjustments. This applies to many entities and is an issue for your ministry. We understand that so far for the 2023 audit, numerous audit adjustments have been made totaling over $5 million. We also noted that the 2022 audit produced over $11 million of adjustments. The chairman referenced the size and complexity of your ministry, and we were told that 2 of your departments have been particularly problematic in that regard. There are audit concerns in many areas, including the adequacy of some review processes, the quality of audit schedules, the undertaking of timely clearance of bank reconciliation items, and the controls over inventory and compliance with legal requirements. Can the CO give the process of managing the finances of the department and the overall ministry?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, committee members. Thank you for the question. My name is Eric Bush. I'm the Chief Officer for the Ministry of Planning, Agriculture, Housing, Infrastructure, Transport and Development. Thank you very much, through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, as previously stated and acknowledged in the report, the ministry is vast, it is complex, it is varied. That doesn't excuse the fact that we continue to have this many adjustments as identified in 2022. And if I can, I believe the report in section 48, page 20, refers to the 2022 audit of PAHID resulted in more than 40 adjustments worth $3.4 million. Taking full note and acknowledgement of that, my understanding, I've been advised that so far, understanding that our audit for 2023 is still ongoing, we have 21 adjustments with a total value of $2.8 million. So, Mr. Chairman, by no means am I trying to debate the numbers. I'm simply giving what's in the report and also what I've been advised. In relation to the 2 departments noted, one of those, for Mr. Chairman, for the committee's edification, is the Department of Agriculture. And the issue at its core, if I can, and just my opinion after being the chief officer for two plus years now, is that the Department of Agriculture is the only department within central government that procures commodities, imports them, stores them, creates an inventory, and then sells them to the general public, namely farmers, and for farming services in support of the farming industry. This is essentially the rub, and it's over $7 million a year worth of economic activity, and we historically found ourselves struggling to adequately run this business. I'm just being totally honest with you. So I did commission a report through a competitive procurement process, and PricewaterhouseCoopers has completed a organizational review of the Department of Agriculture, and really dug into the issues that we've identified, that the Auditor General helpfully identified in 22. Also asked the internal audit department to assist us, and they provided their recommendations. And all of this at its core was that we're in a business that we're not used to being in. So the recommendations which are being taken forward is that the commercial arm of the department, which is the farming assistance and farming services be, whether it be, and this is a political decision, but whether it be outsourced or at the very least, separated from the regulatory and expert services in which the Department of Agriculture is mandated by law to facilitate. That being said, Mr. Chairman, in the last year, we've hired 4 accounting staff for the Department of Agriculture alone, one being, and the restructure, one being a financial accountant, and we're hoping to successfully recruit a senior financial manager within this department, noting the historic issues we've had, because even though the ministry is very large, is very different and complex, and even though we're facilitating a business that is unlike any other business in core government, we have to be answerable for government funds. And as the audited reports are presented to the Auditor General, they should be clean. They shouldn't require 21 adjustments, totaling $2.8 million. So this is something we've actively been working on, and hopefully we've identified the core issue, and hopefully we can address it going forward.
Thank you, Mr. CEO, for that, for being so very candid. That leads me into my next question in regards to the Department of Agriculture. Can you also give us that we've identified relating to a lack of controls over the following: cash collection, the counting and recording of inventory, lack of a policy for setting credit limits for customers, and large amounts uncollected for agricultural supplies?
Through you, Mr. Chair, and thank you again for the question. Yes, as identified, all of those, Mr. Chair, have to do with the commercial component of the Department of Agriculture. So the credit that the members spoke of historically has been an issue, so we have put an end to that. It is cash and carry. In terms of the controls, we've with the hiring of the accounting staff, we believe we've strengthened the inventory control of the inventory itself, and in terms of the cash and cash management, which was identified in 2022 and again continue to be an issue. We hope we've tied that up as well, strengthened that.
Thank you, sir. Just want to ask the CEO, how are some customers able to continue to receive agricultural supplies when they are not making any payments to settle their old debts?
The government made a decision to allow to first stop the credit, but allow individuals who still owe the government to continue on a cash and carry basis.
Sir, I'll pass it on to my colleague now.
Thank you to the witness, Mr. Bush. So how are you all going to collect the large sums of money that is still outstanding? Do you all have a plan in place?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes and no. And the reason for that is some of this debt is 2 decades old. Some of the individuals who this debt is applied to are no longer with us. And so in terms of that, there is a recommendation to write that off. In terms of the debt collection, our friends in the debt collection unit in the Ministry of Finance have been trying in earnest to collect the sums owed. But in terms of stopping the bleeding, through Mr. Chair, we've stopped the credit.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just have a brief word to substantiate what Mr. Bush has just said. We in the Ministry of Finance, we've recently received a cabinet paper recommending the write-off of a fairly significant amount of old debts, approaching $2 million. So I can confirm that the request has been made. We have not, in finance, we have not given our input into that paper, but we will. And so I'm confirming what Mr. Bush has just said, and we are obviously pleased that going forward, we should not have a recurrence of significant debts owing to government accruing because of we're now adopting a cash and carry basis of getting supplies.
I'm glad to hear that evidence given to us this morning, because I've been aware of it for some time with the issues with the agricultural department and the purchasing and selling of stuff for the farmers. Mr. Bush, are there any other issues? I think you've given clear evidence of the challenges with operating the commercial side of the Department of Agriculture, but are there any other issues that exist that are preventing the completion of the 2023 audit for your ministry?
Mr. Chair, I'm advised there's nothing materially outstanding as far as I'm aware. I just, if I could say, the 2022 audit for our ministry was delayed. The 2023 is again delayed, and these are it's fully accepted. It's issues and adjustments on the ministry side. What I would ask is if we can agree to double down on 24, so we can stop this vicious chain of delaying, because I think it's compounding on itself. So I would just like to publicly say whatever needs to be done from myself or the chief financial officer or any member of finance or member in the PAHID team to conclude 2023 and look towards 2024 being submitted, reviewed, and closed out in time. I undertake to do that publicly, Mr. Chair.
And I do appreciate that, but as well, thank you for that. Just, you have any sort of timetable as when you think you're going to finish and get the 2023 accounts signed off? Oh, Auditor General.
Yes, to be fair to Mr. Bush, Chief Officer Bush, it's with us. We're getting towards the end of it. We are anticipating by the end of next month we will have signed off on 2023. And like Chief Officer Bush, we want to absolutely be in a place where 2024 gets us back on track, because the issues that were experienced, as the Chief Officer has quite rightly said, in 2022, particularly around the Department of Agriculture, caused a lot of issues, and I'm pleased to hear the action that's been taken to resolve those. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for that, Auditor General.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Back to you again, Mr. CEO. Would you give us reasons why the ministry reported a deficit in 2023 and every year in the 4 years before that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, thank you for the question. I believe that's covered in Appendix B, whereby it has 2019, 2020, 2021, 22, and 23. In the 23 section, it's noted a deficit of $1.478 million, noting that the 2023 audit for the ministry is still on to be closed out. The latest information I have from my CFO is that the deficit is about $500,000 less, again from adjustments. So the material reason for that, I'm told, is a depreciation discrepancy, as well as writing off bad debt from internal customers for about $350,000. So, as you know, one part of the ministry is to offer either professional services or commodities to internal government. And it seems that through a conversation with the finance team and the Auditor General's office, it was advised and recommended and agreed that $350,000 of bad debt should be written off in compliance with accounting principles.
That's last of my questioning, Mr. CEO, and I'd like to thank you and your staff for attending this morning. God bless.
Questions from anyone else? I do have one. In addition to your CFO in the ministry, how many other accounting staff do you have working in there?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just for clarity, within the ministry itself, that would have been easy to answer. We have 6, but it's within the departments themselves. They have various levels of accounting staff. So depending on the budgets and the complexities, it's different. So I don't have the exact number of financial staff within the entire ministry, but just within the core ministry, it's 6: chief financial officer, 2 deputy chief financial officers, and three other support staff in various levels of accounting.
I do appreciate it. That was the information I was trying to solicit from you. So I thank you for it. And I thank you for appearing before the committee today to give the evidence that you have. We appreciate your time and your effort. So thanks again for being here this morning. I would like to call on our next witness to appear before the committee. That is Mrs. Cindy Scotland, the CEO of the Cayman Islands Monetary Authority. Good morning, Mrs. Scotland. I welcome you to this committee of the Public Accounts Committee and to our hearing this morning examining the report of the Auditor General. I know you've appeared before and you know the ropes. So when I ask you your first question, if you would state your name and your position for the record so that it's recorded properly in the Hansards. Before I get into the questioning, I'm just going to make a brief statement, and then my colleague, Mr. Joey Hugh, is going to lead off with the questioning of you in terms of this section of the report. So the Auditor General's report summarizes the financial results and audit opinions of public sector bodies for 2023, and it provides information about their financial health. It also draws attention to several key audit matters. We want to congratulate CIMA on getting an unqualified audit opinion and make it abundantly clear that SEMA is highly regarded in terms of its management and leadership, both financial and otherwise. So I don't want there to be any idea as to how we uphold and appreciate the work that SEMA does and appreciate the leadership team. You're all held in the highest of regards. The main reasons we have invited you this morning as a witness today are to understand more about the impediments to implementing Section 47 of the Public Authorities Act, and also to discuss SEMA's financial position and results for the 2023 years. So I thank you for being here today, knowing how busy you are, and I now am going to pass over to my colleague, Joy Hugh, who will now lead the questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you, and good morning to Mrs. Scotland. Mrs. Scotland, in the Auditor General's report of 2023, and as it has been in previous years, the Auditor General draws our attention to issues regarding the implementation of Section 47(1) of the Public Authorities Act. As you know, this section of the Act requires public authorities to use the same salary scale as the Cabinet determines, which is the civil service pay scale. It then requires that employees' remuneration be adjusted to reduce any pay differences. SEMA is the largest of the three public bodies that have not yet implemented this section of the Act. From last year's PAC testimony, we understand that the portfolio of civil service has completed an evaluation of SEMA's salary grades compared to the civil service pay scale. Understanding all of that, my question to you is, why has SEMA not yet made the pay adjustments to implement Section 47 of the Public Authorities Act?
Good morning, Cindy Scotland, Chief Executive Officer for the Cayman Islands Monetary Authority. Mr. Chair, thank you for the kind words, and we find ourselves actually in unfamiliar territory, because I don't think in my 34 years that I've ever been to PAC. Nevertheless, I will pleased to be here and given the opportunity to explain. I note I only have 30 minutes, and this particular question alone could take 3 days to discuss. I'm going on the assumption that when we speak of Section 47, that we're only referring to Section 47(1), which deals with the salary scales, because I don't know if anyone has truly implemented the entire Section 47. Mr. Chair, as far back as 2015, the authority has been writing and expressing her concern on the Public Authorities Act and what the implications would be for SEMA as a statutory authority, and one that was set up specifically to adhere to international standards to ensure operational independence. Section 47 cuts at the heart of that independence. Having said that, it is an act which we must adhere to, and so we have been making strides to try and get there while mitigating the impact that it will have on us. SEMA, through the commitments made by this jurisdiction, not by SEMA, but by this jurisdiction, to adhere to the various international standards, have to ensure at all times that we advise government when we feel that we are going afoul of those commitments, and at the end of the day, then the government has a decision to make, and I feel that's where we are with Section 47. We received the proposed salary scale from the POCs, and we immediately took an analysis of what would transition onto that look like for SEMA. The results were that 64 of our employees would be red circle. That means that there'd be no salary growth potential for those 64 employees. I note that of those 64 employees, 66% were Caymanians. And I also note that 36% of those were at a deputy head level and above. We found that less than 10, in the air category where we had less than 10% room for salary growth, we had 138 employees that would be impacted. 62% were Caymanian. 11% were deputy heads and above. We had a third category where there was more than a 10% room for salary growth, but within 2 years that growth would have been used up. That impacted 81 employees, of which 91% were Caymanians, and 11% were at most levels ranging from the receptionist up to a deputy head. And the immediate concern for us in looking at those numbers were the fact that we would have a brain drain within CIMA within a short period of time, because most of our experience are at deputy head level and above. And so those individuals, it would be hard to expect them to continue in a job where, one, they're either frozen, or two, their earning purchasing power has been significantly reduced. We then looked at the cost of implementing, ensuring that equivalency was held with core government. That meant we had to revert on a decision taken by CIMA over 2 decades ago as it relates to pension. CIMA currently, sir, only pays 100% pension for 13 staff members. If we were to implement Section 47, we would revert to paying 100% pensions for the entire 306 and growing number of employees. We also then had to look at health insurance. We currently have a sharing of cost where CIMA pays 86% of the premium and the staff pay 14%. And the staff bears the cost of any deductible and co-pay. That, of course, would have to change, where we would bear the full cost of the premium, and we would have to ensure that staff were reimbursed for any co-pay or any deductible. Under the current insurance plan, we have 293 full-time employees that are covered, and we have 247 dependents. However, moving to a plan where all cost is paid for by the employer, we are 100% certain that those numbers would go up, because the spouses and everyone else would then seek to be under the plan where they bear no cost. With an estimated total of looking at those two, and just looking at the number of staff as at the end of December, so that number would obviously grow as we continue to grow in numbers. We were looking at an additional $3 million per annum, and that's being conservative, because we don't know what the increase. It would increase based on the number of staff, and it would increase based on any change in premium for health insurance. An additional cost for us to also look at, and which is perhaps the most significant, is that we would now then have to offer all employees, based on a certain criteria, post-retirement health benefits. As it currently stands, CIMA only has a legal obligation to provide post-retirement health for 10 staff members. With the implementation of Section 47, this could likely increase to over 200 persons. And I note that CIMA has 72% Caymanian staff. I think it is safe to say that the remeasurement then of the post-retirement health benefit obligations would significantly increase and certainly dilute the surplus that we've seen in the SEAM report. Mr. Chair, for the record, I'd like to say at this point that CIMA has never implemented, and I've been there 34 years this month, a salary review or a new salary bands without having consulted with our ministry. The last one was done back in 2016, and at that time we took a phased approach. The first stage was that we made the adjustments to the lower staff, the people at the lower end, and the second phase then was to bring everyone else in line with the new scale. But we have never done without consulting or advising the ministry. And we have never done it in a way where it's required additional funding. While we're making every effort to implement Section 47, we must advise that we have grave concerns about the impact. We are of the view that once implemented, SEMA will lose a significant number of staff within 12 to 24 months and will not be able to attract the quality of staff which we require. I want to also just give an example. If we adopt the new scales and you have someone whose contract comes up for a renewal, I can only negotiate with them based on the new scales. So the scales that has been presented to us by government, the government scale. It will be difficult for someone to accept to do the same job with a compressed salary scale when they already are of the view that they're underpaid for the job that they're doing, because we are operating at only a 72% capacity. So everyone does more than what their job description says they should do. And so we know immediately that that's the first challenge we will have, is convincing people to do a job where they know that their earning potential has been reduced. It is also important to note that this will happen on the heel of the upcoming FATF 5th round. We were just removed from the grey list, and as a jurisdiction, I think I am safe in this instance, and speaking on behalf of the jurisdiction, which I don't do, to say that we do not want to find ourselves back on that list. When FATF comes, it will not just be about the number of staff that you have, it will be about the caliber, the quality, the skill set of that staff. If we are already challenged on the current pay scales that we have to attract those people, it will be even more difficult, sir, to do so on another salary scale that's compressed. SEMA remains of the view that the Public Authorities Act, Section 47, should be carefully reviewed at this time and a solution found that all parties can agree to. We have no objection, sir, to the Public Authorities Act. That's not our role. But we have to say when something creates a difficulty, like I said at the beginning, we have a right to advise the government of what the implications of that is. And we honestly feel that the implications of Section 47 are far-reaching for us, not just as SEMA domestically, but from an international standpoint. But we are making effort. We are currently, we've just awarded a contract to the successful bidder to do a market review, which will mean looking at the job descriptions, and that will form part of our proposal to government as to how we move forward with the implementation of Section 47. Sorry for the...
Thank you. Can I just ask one question? And with regard to what you just said, how long do you think that it will take that review to be completed and the results known to SEMA so that they can, advise government or discuss with government?
We had an opening meeting yesterday, and I think we're looking at between 17 to 20 weeks. So I would certainly say by mid-year. I certainly am getting tired of discussing Section 47, so 2025 would hopefully be our year to resolve the issue.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, thank you, Mrs. Scotland, for that detailed explanation. And I am aware, having been a member of the executive before, the challenges there, and they are very industry specific in where your cost and the competition is driven by external forces, and an industry which is continuously evolving, and so you have to evolve your staff complement to keep up with it. We can probably see the same thing in HSA and other places, and certainly when we talk about our monetary authority and the wonderful reputation it has, or when we talk about the doctor we go see at HSA, we don't want to think that we're just getting what we're paying for. And if you go at a salary scale like that, if you're actually able to recruit, you're not recruiting at the level that you would like to have, handling the authority. So it is obvious to me that that the government and perhaps the next government at this stage should make it a priority to look, because it's not just, I'm sure it's not just monetary authority. I think HSA and others are facing the same issues in recruiting persons based on the salary scale. So from this, and I guess what I'm hearing from you is that there has to be, and I think you mentioned it, there has to be a review of Section 47(1), if not at least the ability for exemptions. Until then, it has to be on a one-off basis where you notify the government that, listen, this is the only way I'm going to fill this position, is if I'm able to move out of this scale bracket.
Mr. Chair, through you, the difficulty is that it's not a one-size-fits-all legislation, right? Each SAGC was established for a different reason. They're all different creatures. SEMA requires a skill set that can't be found locally, and those that you find local are ones that we've trained ourselves. And so I think that there's no objection to saying that Cabinet has to approve our salary scales. We don't operate in a vacuum. Government is our shareholder. The problem is when you try to fit us on a scale that we don't think reflects what the organization needs. And so that's why I say that I think it needs to be reviewed to find a solution that, one, gives the government the comforts that it needs, but also allows us then to continue to attract the caliber of people that we need to work at SEMA. If we are to remain in this game called financial services, it is an expensive game, and it is one where we want the best, and you're not going to get them we have, like I said, we have challenges with the current scale that we have, so it will only be natural to assume that it's going to be worse if that scale has been condensed.
Thank you for that, and through you, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move on to something a bit more positive now, and that being your financial performance. An opportunity for you to talk about the profits that you've posted. I mean, if you look at the Exhibit 20 on page 38 of the report, it shows that SEMA has made a healthy profit in each of the past 5 years. In 2023, that profit jumped considerably to nearly 22 million. In the same exhibit, we noted 10 other SAGCs making losses. You know, I would invite you, Mrs. Scotland, at this time to perhaps talk about some of the main factors that contributed to the healthy performances, and in 2023, the $22 million profit in particular.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. The surplus that we enjoyed in 2023 were driven by mainly two things. One was an increase in the interest income, and exercise carried out by our investments team to collect fees from directors, which were outstanding for many years. And I must go on record in thanking the team, because it was a very tedious and time-consuming job, but they did it. So those two factors were really what contributed to the surplus.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chairman, so that level of the profit wasn't planned. And do you, I'm assuming it wasn't planned based on, you made the efforts to collect, but so is that fair to believe then that we don't expect that same trend or level of profits in the future years?
Yeah. I think you'll see a profit, but no, I don't think it will be at that level. Having said that, there are still some fees outstanding. The question is whether those are recoverable. And so that's what we'll be looking at in the next couple of months.
And finally, on this subject for myself, is SEMA compliant with the dividends policy, and have you ever paid back their profits to the Treasury?
We were exempted from the dividend policy, I want to say, back in 2019, simply because I think it's sections 9, 10, and 32 of the Monetary Authority Act requires that once we have provided for all of our necessary reserves, the balance is to be paid over to the general revenue of the island. So that provision is already in our act. So we were exempted from the dividend policy. Yes, we have paid back to government, and I figured that would probably be asked. So, because I'd like to say it even if I'm not asked. But for the fiscal year 2019, we had given government a dividend of $5 million. Of 2020, it was $2.75 million, and for 2023, it was $3 million.
And Mr. Chairman, I can certainly confirm the receipt of the most recent one, the $3 million. So the Treasurer has actually got that, and the earlier years as well. But the most recent one is the one that I remember the most, obviously. That has happened.
And he did cash the check for the other two.
Thank you for that, Mr. Chairman. Through you, I'll move on then to my final line of questioning, and that being on has to do with the Procurement Act, paragraph 58, page 23. Recognizing that generally SEMA procurements are well managed and compliant with the Procurement Act and its regulations. However, the Auditor General raised 4 examples in paragraph 58, page 23. Legal consultancy services for $163,000 and 3 purchases of services at $103,000, $129,000, and $120,000 made without approvals being obtained from your entity procurement committee. What are your plans and actions to ensure that compliance with the Procurement Act and regulations are followed?
Thank you, and Mr. Chair, through you. First, in regards to legal services, since you specifically cited that one, it's always a difficult one, and in the instance that is noted in the Auditor General's report, we found ourselves in a unfamiliar territory where there was a global event and a licensee was in trouble, and because of the structure and the type of license, we had to seek legal advice that was not in this jurisdiction, so it was based on US law. And so we had to find a firm in the US. Now, unfortunately, we were fighting against time, and so we simply found someone who had a connexus to Cayman, who had done work before for the government. Once we were satisfied that they had the expertise, we utilized them. Now, everybody that would have been involved in the procurement process was involved in that process, but we didn't tick the boxes and do it the right way. So for that, we take full responsibility. However, what we've done since then is that we have centralized all procurements through one of our divisions, and I have asked them to start providing me with biannual reports on where we are with procurement. So what procurements have we done for the first half of the year? Were we in compliance? Have we checked all the boxes? Did we do what we were supposed to do? We've also widened the pool of persons receiving training on procurement, because even though there is an internal procurement committee, usually these things start at a divisional level. So ensuring that at least the heads and the deputy heads are aware of what the obligations are under the Act and the regs. We have also agreed that we're going to amend the training requirements to make them mandatory annually, and that we continue then to ensure that people who've left, that whoever's replaced them, get the necessary training. We are kicking it off with a training by our own legal people by in the middle of February, I think it is. I don't know the exact date, where they will give a training to the staff, including myself and my deputies, on what the Procurement Act calls for, what it requires of us, what we need to do. And then after that, staff will be required to take the various training sessions that the procurement office offers. We're also developing a procurement framework in the area of legal advice and any other areas related to enforcement measures, which does not hamper our ability to act quickly, but which also then meets the intent and the spirit of the law.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I want to just thank Mrs. Scotland for her detailed and well-presented answers. And that's all for me. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Questions from other members? Let me just conclude then, Ms. Scotland. I wanted to go back and ask you about something you said during the course of your testimony. I think you said that you were at 72% of your capacity, or in terms of numbers?
Well, we're currently at 306 or 309 staff, and we have 400 approved up until the end of this year. So we're operating at a 73% capacity.
Okay. Do you have ongoing plans to try and fulfill or fill these vacant positions? Because I know you're facing a fifth round of mutual evaluation very shortly. I know the risks here.
Yeah, recruitment is ongoing, sir. It never stops.
Okay. I appreciate that candidness. And I thank you for your testimony before the committee this morning. You've been very forceful in presenting your positions and enlightening the committee. I believe also the public will have a better understanding of the challenges and positions that you face. And I want to thank you for your presence this morning. So we'll go ahead and excuse you from the committee at this time. Thank you again.
Thank you, sir.
Now I'd like to call our final witness into the chambers, Mr. Garth MacDonald, Chairman of the Board of the Cayman Islands Monetary Authority. Well, it is afternoon. Good afternoon, Mr. MacDonald. Welcome to the Public Accounts Committee hearing today on the government's financial reporting for 2023. When I ask you your first question, I ask if you would state your name and the position, just for the record. Before I start questioning, I would just like to make a very brief opening statement. So I want to thank you again for coming as a witness and appearing here today. As we already stated to your Chief Executive, we want to congratulate CIMA on receiving an unqualified audit opinion. We also want to make clear that we regard CIMA as a highly capable entity in terms of its financial management and reporting and its leadership generally. However, we are keen to explore with you the board's perspective on a couple of matters raised by the audits. And I will lead off the inquiry, the questioning with regard to these matters with you. I'm going to start first, and ask about the Public Authorities Act, Section 47, which we heard a lot of from your CEO with regard to the challenges and difficulties that they face in the implementation. But in 2023 general report, as in a lot of past years, the Auditor General draws our attention to issues regarding the implementation of Section 47 of the Public Authorities Act. This section of the Act requires public authorities to use the same salary scale as the Cabinet determines, which is the Civil Service Pay Scale. It then requires that employee remuneration be adjusted to reduce any pay difference. Now, CIMA is the largest of the 3 public bodies that have not yet implemented this section of the Act, and we just heard from the CEO about the issues CIMA faces in implementing Section 47 of the Act. So I'd like to hear from you as Chair. What is the board's perspective on what has caused the delays in implementation of the Act?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members. My name is Garth MacDonald. I'm the current chairman of the Cayman Islands Monetary Authority. I've been in that role since March of 2022. Prior to that, I also served as the director for a 3-year period. I believe it was 2015 to 2018. With regard to your question, Mr. Chairman, the current board and prior boards of CIMA have always had concerns with Section 47.1 of the Public Authorities Act. Those concerns are both operational and macro. And when I say macro, I mean potential impacts on the jurisdiction's financial services industry. This dates back to the consultation process, which I believe kicked off in 2015, and a memo was forwarded by CIMA's board expressing their concerns. The 3 major concerns were it would hinder CIMA's ability to recruit and retain qualified staff, specialist staff, both domestically and internationally. The second one was it would undermine CIMA's independence, which is a requirement by international regulatory bodies, most notably the FATF. And there was also a concern that the process for evaluating and scoring the positions wasn't as transparent as it could have been and didn't take into account all of the factors. These concerns have been subsequently communicated by the last, I think, 3 boards, which I wasn't a member of. And if anything, they've only been magnified with all the pressure on the jurisdiction by the likes of the FATF and the growing financial services industry. The authority has always maintained with POCs that having a unilaterally imposed salary scale interferes with its operational independence. It also was concerned that the implications of other benefits weren't properly taken into account, mostly pensions, health care, and post-retirement benefits. There's also a concern from the board level that unilaterally imposing a pay scale on existing employees could give rise to complications, and the concern that it could disproportionately impact Caymanians on a career path within the organization. CIMA, I think you were told earlier, is challenged with recruiting and retention of staff, currently operating at 75% capacity. In all the time I've been a member of the board and sat on the Human Resources Subcommittee, it's always been brought up at meetings. It's a challenge. Implementing Section 47.1 in its current form will only make matters worse. We have an upcoming 5th round evaluation by the FATF. I believe it starts in 2026. They will look heavily at effectiveness of regulation. If we don't have a competent, qualified staff, that could be a red flag. We currently have a salary scale, and this predates my tenure on the board as chair, but I believe it was shared with the ministry back in 2018 or 2019. We are also currently undertaking a full review of that salary scale to see what needs to be looked at given the current environment. It's challenging recruiting staff because they're in demand everywhere. With the increased oversight when it comes to financial services, professionals can pick and choose where they go to work. So we need to remain competitive to attract them, both whether it's locally or from overseas. I believe we hope to have that survey done by summer, at which time the CEO would be in discussions with the ministry. So that's all I have for now.
There was a lot of food for thought there, Mr. McDonald. I thank you for that clarity and the information you have provided. I'm not sure that the questions I had, sort of follow-ups and follow-ons, are really relevant because you've said so much as well. So, and given between what you have provided and what your CEO provided to us as well earlier, I'm satisfied that we have solicited and obtained satisfactory information from you. But you mentioned, and so did your CEO, that you only 72% of, or 72% of your positions having been filled, and that recruitment is always an ongoing process for SEMA in trying to fill these vacancies. Can you give us your thoughts on how are you likely to be able to fill these positions with regard to in advance of or the fifth round mutual evaluation that will take place in 2026? Because it seems to me that the time frame for that now is being compressed getting quite compressed.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chairman. So the board has a subcommittee which deals with human resource matters. It meets quarterly with the HR team in SEMA. It reviews a very comprehensive HR report, which details everything from successful recruiting to unsuccessful recruiting, and then looks for solutions to improve it, whether it be through the medium they advertise for jobs, whether it's community outreach. They also look at, we know a practical reality, we cannot compete with salaries in the private sector. And I don't think we will ever be able to. So we have to always be aware of offering careers within the organization with a work-life balance and other benefits that aren't solely salary related.
Now turn it over to Ms. Connolly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to our witness, Mr. McDonald. On financial performance, Exhibit 20 on page 38 of the report shows that SEMA has made a healthy profit in each of the past 5 years, but in 2023 that profit jumped considerably to nearly 22 million. And I know Mrs. Scotland did indicate that contributed to increase in interest income as well as the collection of directors' fees. Can you, as the chairman of the board, indicate what the board's process is for monitoring SEMA's finances?
Thank you for the question. Through the chair, we have quarterly meetings, and we also have an audit finance subcommittee of the board, and they meet with the CFO and her financial team every quarter to review the results and keep tabs on progress towards budget. There's three things that contributed to the large surplus in 2023. One is the collection of DRLL fees, an exercise that was undertaken by the management team. The other was the rapid rise in interest rates, which allowed the investment account that backs the currency to earn better returns. And the third goes back to the human resources question, because we have budgeted 400 positions, but we've only filled 300 and I believe 2.
Thank you, sir, for that explanation. Can you, as the chairman, indicate whether the board, what your expectation is for CIMA's profits for 2024 and 2025?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the budget process is very comprehensive with government. It's very labor intensive. We have sight of it at the Audit and Finance Subcommittee. We always budget for successful recruiting. We do not want to be in a position of having to come back to government mid-year looking for supplementary finance. So I believe the budget for 2024 is either, I'd hesitate to give a number, as I wouldn't want to give an incorrect number. But it will not be at the level seen in 2023, because those things have now been fully factored in.
Thank you, sir. That's the end of my questioning, Mr. Chairman.
I think at this point, just chatted with my colleague there as you were giving the evidence to responding to Barbara's questions. I think we're going to end it here, Mr. McDonald. I think asking you the same information you've given to us at this point throughout just matches and dovetails so nicely with evidence given by your CEO. We're just feeling it. There's little point in us just soliciting the same information again from you. I mean, other times. So I'm going to excuse you and bring the hearing to a close, because I think we have heard a lot of information from you and your CEO with regard to the issues that we've had to discuss with you this morning. So I want to thank you on behalf of the committee for appearing, and thank you too for the candid way in which you have answered our questions. And I think we do have a better understanding too of the real and significant challenges you face. And thank you again for appearing here this morning. You're excused, sir.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members.
Before you go, Mr. McDonald, I think, no? No questions here?
For you. Yes, Mr. Chairman, sorry for the confusion. I just wanted to beg your indulgence for a short moment for a pretty important matter, I believe. Mr. Chairman, sorry, this is Mr. McDonald can continue, sir. Can continue to leave. It's not impacting CIMA.
Okay. You're all excused.
Sorry, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to try to clarify an important area, I feel. And it's concerning the Public Service Pension Board. And I start by saying that I'm in no way questioning the accuracy of the audit office's numbers at all. I'm not doing that. But the committee will notice on page 38, Exhibit 20, for all the entire 5-year period from 19 to 2023, yes. In every single year, there is a deficit shown there. And that's actually repeated in the narrative in the Auditor General's report as one of those SADCs that consistently make deficits. Now, so what I wanted to try and say was that we have held out, Mr. Chairman, in this House, and it's stated publicly that, you know, the Public Service Pension Board does a marvelous job in its performance. So this would, on the surface of it, seem to contradict with that. And if you were a pensioner, and you actually read this, you should be a bit concerned. If your pension fund provider is making deficits, you should be concerned. If you are a public sector entity that is perhaps seeking to join the pension fund, which there are one or two that are thinking about it, then you should be concerned. What I wanted to try to appease those people that may be concerned, if they've happened to read this, is to say that the deficits that are stated here are quite specific in one area of the pension board's operation. They are referring to the administrative expenses of the pension board, which are in 2023 about $6 million, just the administrative expenses. And I think the solution maybe, Mr. Chairman, is that the wording in the Act as to what should be audited can be clarified. So if you take the performance of the pension funds, and there's 3 of them as a whole, you certainly get into a significant surplus situation. So I just happened, Mr. Chairman, very quickly to picked up an extract of the 23 accounts of the pension board. We see that the contributions, the pension contributions coming into that year was 74 million. They paid out 50 million, 51 million in pension payments to members. So that left them with a surplus of 23. The investment income side of things, Mr. Chairman, is extremely substantial. The realized gains on investments, as an example, during that year was almost $109 million. And yes, there are significant unrealized gains as well. So that in the next year, that could be the other way as well. But when you put everything together, including the administrative expenses, the 6.132 million that's mentioned as a deficit in the report, if you collapse the revenues and the expenses as all one, then we are talking about, for 23, an overall surplus of around $190 million. So I just wanted to make that observation, that try to reassure civil servants, public servant pensioners that all seems to be well. The Public Service Pension Board is a $1 billion organization, and the value of its assets, of course, affected by stock market valuations and so forth, is probably approaching $2 billion US dollars now. So that's the olive branch that I would offer, would be that to reconcile what's stated in the Auditor General's report and what's in the annual report of the Pension Board, we should relook at what the audit encompasses.
I appreciate that clarity, FS, and thank you very much for that. Okay, with that being said, we are going to break now for lunch, 25 after 12 by that clock. Let's take an hour and be back at 1:30, and we will, where we'll examine the second of the reports that are before us. So let's take a break. We'll be back at 1:30. Thank you all.